to bring in our next guest. We actually have another guest joining us on our conversation, if you don't mind, to expand on the North-South strategies to tackle climate change, as well as collaboration opportunities that also need to be accelerated to bridge the gap. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming His Excellency Freddy Svane, the Danish ambassador to India. Very warm welcome. A very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. I hope you have good questions.
I do,
have
of
good
course.
answers. Very good to see you.
Of course we do. Well, yes, please do join our conversation. Now, Your Excellency, I wanted to start off with what's happening over in Denmark. It's very interesting indeed, in fact, because Denmark is almost completely powered by renewable energy.
Yes.
How has that happened? Tell us how that's been achieved, and do you think that is going to be sustainable?
Of course, it will be sustainable. It is sustainable. It takes three actors, so to say: visionary politicians, research development, meaning the institutions, universities, and a proactive business sector. These three will do it. That was exactly what happened when Denmark was facing the energy crisis back in the 1970s. That time we were 100% dependent on fossil fuel, imported fuel. And then suddenly we had no supply, and then we had to reinvent ourselves, and we redefined the wind turbine industry. Today, the wind turbine industry is a double-digit billion US dollar industry, creating a lot of jobs across the world. That can happen, that should happen, and that will happen also in India.
And as we mentioned earlier, you know, that element of change is always going to be chaotic. You're never going to get away from that. But it's transitioning to that change, and how you do it, I suppose, in the most sort of easiest way possible is very important as well. Tell us what's happening over in the UK in terms of renewables and renewable energy. Do you think
we're not at Denmark's stage yet, but we're doing quite well. We have 43% of our energy, our power system, coming from renewables. And there have been whole periods during the past few years where we have had no fuel and fossil fuel on the system at all. So we're getting there. And I have to admit, and Freddy, I know is going to love this, and I'm sorry if
listen carefully
that he is going to enjoy this. But Dong Energy, which is the Danish company, does actually make most of the wind turbines that we use in the UK. We have the wind resource, but I have to say they actually make the product, and they make it very well. So, Freddy, you know, we should do a double act, I think.
Yeah, we should, of course.
Please do. We were just talking about some of the opportunities between the global north and south. Tell us a little bit more about your 5-year action plan between Denmark and India and how that's actually progressing, because that was signed in 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's true. But it all started with what we call the Green Strategic Partnership. And that was conceived based on two really simple, definitions. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has launched every year a number of missions. And these missions are developing India. So we decided that on our side, where we are very strong, that is for the green transition, that we would like to combine our skills, our technologies, our experiences, with what is on the table, on the agenda of India. That's why we brought in our skills. We built up this Green Strategic Partnership. And then we have an elaborated work plan that sets out very specific KPIs for a number of sectors. And that's working, and is not just nice political declarations. It's really changing our world, it's changing the planet, it's changing India, and luckily it's also changing Denmark. So it's the best concept ever invented.
Brilliant. I think that deserves a round of applause.
Oh
don't
yeah,
you?
of course. They are not that green, so they don't understand it.
So what exactly, tell us a little bit more about some of the strategies that are happening over at the Danish embassy that are working to propel this partnership on the ground here in India. What's happening over at the embassy?
Embassy, we are just bureaucrats, and there are too many bureaucrats around, but we are trying really to change things. What is important is that we are not just sitting in our office, nice offices in Delhi. We are really out on ground. We have a lot of ongoing projects in Tamil Nadu, Assam, even here in Gujarat and so forth. And we need to go out. We need to work, and we need to identify the opportunities, but also the challenges, because green transition as such is a very nice political statement, but to do it on ground takes a lot of effort. So you need to connect with the local situation and the context. And we are doing that. So we have a number of projects, and we are very, very soon going to announce even bigger projects in a number of states. Luckily, India has a structure with a lot of states, and they are organizing constantly based a little bit on the concept of Vibrant Gujarat. So there are so many investment summits and so forth. And next upcoming will be in UP, and there will come with some big announcements, stating, showing that we can do changes. And if there are anybody from the state government of Gujarat that would like to see a change, please call me and we'll help you change.
You heard it here first. There you go. Thank you so much. Well, it's very easy, of course, for like-minded countries to collaborate because they have the same type of vision, I suppose. But what about those with differences and different outlooks? How do we get everyone on board? That's to both of you.
You're a politician, so you start, and right. I give the right answer.
Yeah, yes, that's right. You'll make sure that the audience know what I meant to say. Look, I think you start off by acknowledging that we have a common problem. And we can either, when you've got a common problem, and you can see this in a family, you can see it in a city, you can see it in a country, or you can look at it globally. When you have a common problem, you can do one of two things. You can either start saying, well, that's your fault. Or, no, I didn't do that. It's because you did. You can start dividing and start pointing the finger and blaming people and start saying, well, I think you should do this. And actually, that's what the world did. And here, Freddy's not going to like it so much, at Copenhagen in 2009. But you'll acknowledge that. It was the Copenhagen Conference of the Parties, COP15. And the global north believed that it could go round and wag its finger at the world and say, you should be doing this, and you should be doing this, and these are the targets we're going to set you. And it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. In Paris, they turned it upside down. And they said, no, look, it's not about telling people what to do. It's about voluntary commitments. It's about each country understanding that this is a common problem that we have to solve together. And if we don't solve it together, we're not going to solve it at all, and that will be a disaster for all of us. And so I really think that it is now about saying, okay, yes, it's a common problem, but we have different responsibilities. And that was way back in the Kyoto Protocol. That was why it talked about common but differentiated responsibilities for each of the member states. And so what we have to do now is we have to say, well, what are these responsibilities and why are they different? And what is fair? Because you can't expect Vanuatu to do the same as China. You can't expect China to do the same as Germany. And there are different assessments of fairness. In fact, if you look at what the IPC says, the IPCC, the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change, they say that there's about 40 different ways of calculating fairness. If you're India, you might say, well, actually, look at our per capita emissions. Our per capita emissions are so low. We need to get our per capita emissions up more to the level of the UK or to heaven forfend, the US. No. There's another way of looking at it and saying, what is the historic responsibility? Well, hey, the UK started the Industrial Revolution, and it may now only be putting in about 2% or less than 2% of global emissions, but it did start it off, and it did benefit from it. So it has a historic responsibility. Or you could say, well, actually, look at what the total net emissions from that baseline are, in which case China is now in the lead. You've got the US second, but India is actually right up there in the top 5 in terms of total emissions over that historical period. So there's lots of ways you can do it. And the trick has been to say, well, let's take a basket and say there is a range of things that a country can do so that its policies and its targets fall into that fair range. And at the moment, let me tell you where we in the UK are falling down. Our targets are deemed sufficient to get us to just about get us to 1.5. The policies in place are not, I have to tell you. But our targets are the right targets. But we are insufficient in the funding that we're prepared to give to other countries to enable them to do what they need to do. Critically insufficient. So we need to be much more open in the UK about the commitment that we made years ago as a global community to put in $100 billion a year into the Global Climate Fund so that developing countries could actually afford to make the transition that they need to make. So it's a common problem. We have different responsibilities, but if we start bickering about it, we will all fail.
I'm a little conscious of the time, so I'd like to just throw over to Your Excellency.
Yeah, I'm not a politician, so I don't need so many words to explain the same. We, of course, Denmark takes, and I take the really strong view, no preaching, no teaching. That's so important. Your Honorable Prime Minister has launched One Earth, One Family, One Future. And I think that is really encapsulating whatever we need to do. And we cannot tell India, seen from my point of view, we can't not tell India to stop using coal. Because the economic, social impacts are so huge. We should turn it around and say, we'd like you to invest. We'd like to bring our technologies. We'd like to bring our skills to you so you can really grow your renewables. That's how it should be. And one thing which I think, whether we are from a political sphere or a diplomatic sphere, or whether we are from India or where we are, what counts is what the Honorable Prime Minister launched in October last year, Mission Life. We had to take an individual responsibility. You can't ask Barry, you can't ask diplomats, you can't ask the bureaucrats to do everything for you. You have to do it yourself. And that's where I see India, the G20, setting a new agenda. And hopefully in September this year, the summit will produce tangibles. So next year I'm being invited here. Barry and I can say, we made it. Not the two of us, but the world made it.
We've got a couple of minutes left. I actually wanted to ask you, I mean, you've been here for a while in the state of Gujarat, Your Excellency, and I was wondering whether you could tell us a little bit about what has sort of impressed you the most in terms of climate action and some of the initiatives that have been laid out. What has impressed you the most?
I came to Gujarat 14th of May 2011. That was my first visit to Gujarat. I saw bumpy roads, but I also met then Chief Minister, who was a business leader, a business CEO for a green transition 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, a decade. And when I have been visiting Gujarat over the years, I have seen huge improvements. It's not just nice political statements, and there's nothing on ground. You see things that have been changed, and I see it also for India as such. So Gujarat, it all started, but beyond that, India is moving, And there's no solution whatever to any global issue without India being part of the equation. Therefore, India cannot fail, should not fail, and will not fail. We will be part of that journey, and Gujarat started everything.
Brilliantly said. We have 40 seconds left, but I'd just like to throw to Barry your final word when it comes to climate leadership and your final key message from our discussion here, just in 30 seconds, please.
Well, look, I came to Gujarat first in 2002, just after the earthquake. And I met the then Chief Minister, Keshubhai Patel. I think I brought with me a check for £1 million for reconstruction of the earthquake. It was impossible to envisage the transformation that the past 21 years has seen. But it has come about from political vision. It's come about from the political vision of the man who then became the Chief Minister here, Narendra Modi, who had the first Minister for Climate Change in any state in India, and he's gone on to project that now, not only at a national level, but on the world stage.
Very well said. Very well said. You have given us so much to think about. We cannot thank you enough for being with us here today in the first dialogue series of the year, of course, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel, His Excellency, and for Barry there, the Honourable Barry Gardiner. Thank you.